Welcome back to Agent Confidential. Who is really running college sports? Or more importantly, who is actually governing college sports? Most fans saw the headlines this week and focused on Brendan Sorsby. Others focused on Texas Tech. Lawyers immediately started debating the legal implications. But I think they're all focused on the wrong thing. The bigger story is that yet another major decision affecting college sports was ultimately decided outside the traditional governance structure. That's becoming a pattern. Whether it's NIL, the portal, revenue sharing, court decisions, or congressional involvement, more and more of the most important decisions in college sports are being made outside the NCAA's control. The Sorsby ruling wasn't the story. The story was another reminder that the current governance structure continues to lose authority over the sport it was designed to govern. And that's what got me thinking about a recent conversation. About a week and a half ago on WJOX with Legend and Kip, I said the governance structure trying to keep up with the economics of college sports is like an offensive tackle trying to cover a slot receiver in space. The more I think about it, the more I believe that's exactly what's happening. Let's look at everything that's happened in just the last few years. NIL, the transfer portal, revenue sharing, the House settlement, congressional involvement, private equity conversations, conference realignment, media rights negotiations. The economics of the sport are evolving at a pace we've never seen before, and the governance structure wasn't built for this. The NCAA was built to govern an amateur model. The problem is that college sports no longer operates like an amateur model. So the economics keep sprinting downfield while the governance structure struggles to keep up. And apparently, I'm not the only one noticing it.
Faux Jimmy Sexton tweeting into the show. Listening to Feinbaum discuss private equity on @Mac and Cube this morning. Not long ago, college football conversations centered on coaches, recruits, and schedules. Today, they're about capital, governance, and economics. It's not a trend. That's a fundamental shift in the business of college sports. I feel like there's accuracy in that.
When Cube responded by saying, there is some truth in that, I don't think he was talking about my tweet. I think he was recognizing a pattern. People across the sport are beginning to realize that the current structure is struggling to keep pace with what's happening around it. The interesting part is it isn't just the fans saying it. It's not just radio hosts saying it. It's not just consultants and lawyers saying it. We're starting to hear it from some of the most respected voices in the sport. Which brings me to Chris Fowler.
Problem is no one is in charge of college football.
When one of the most respected voices in college football says nobody is in charge, that's not a hot take. That's an observation. Think about what he's saying. The NCAA doesn't fully control the environment. The conferences don't fully control the environment. The courts don't fully control the environment. Congress doesn't fully control the environment. State legislatures don't fully control the environment. Everyone has some influence. Nobody has complete authority. And when you create a multi-billion-dollar industry where everyone has influence but nobody has authority, confusion is usually the result. And that's where college sports finds itself today, which leads us to the next question. One of the thoughts I shared yesterday was this. The interesting question may not be whether the NCAA survives, but what replaces it. I think that's where the conversation is headed. Every major industry eventually develops a governance structure. Financial markets have governance. Professional sports have governance. Public companies have governance. The question isn't whether governance exists. The question is who controls it. Will it be the NCAA? Will it be the SEC and Big Ten? Will it be a new governing body? Will Congress be involved? Nobody knows. But I think the conversation is increasingly moving from can the NCAA survive to what comes next? And if you want to understand where things may be headed, follow the incentives.
Perspective, if you had the biggest, baddest Ferrari that you could ever have and it was going 150 miles an hour toward the Grand Canyon, somebody needs to tap the brakes. And I think that's what we all need to do here.
Everybody remembers the Ferrari. But what Nick Saban was really talking about wasn't the car. He was talking about incentives. That's the part people missed. When economics change, behavior changes. Schools respond. Players respond. Agents respond. Collectives respond. Conferences respond. Everybody follows the incentives. Revenue sharing, media rights, expanded playoffs, private equity conversations. These are not governance stories. These are economic stories. And eventually, governance has to catch up with the economics. And that's the challenge facing college sports right now. Which brings us to Greg Sankey.
What seems to be the tipping point in this discussion is this notion, an erroneous notion. I want to be clear about that. And then I shared this with Senator Cruz along with my colleague Tony Petitti. We are not having some conversation about emergency.
One of the most interesting comments from the last few days wasn't what Greg Sankey said. It was what he didn't say. People immediately hear comments about cooperation between conferences and jump to conclusions. I'm not predicting mergers. I'm not predicting breakaways. I'm not predicting super conferences. What I am saying is that major strategic conversations rarely start with the principals. They start lower in organizations. Ideas get tested. Positions get aligned. Relationships get built. That's how large organizations work. The bigger takeaway isn't whether the SEC and Big Ten are doing something tomorrow. The bigger takeaway is that people with the most influence in college sports increasingly appear to be moving in the same direction. In closing, fans are focused on Brendan Sorsby. Fans are focused on Texas Tech. Fans are focused on the latest ruling. The people in the boardrooms are focused on something much bigger. Who will govern college sports over the next decade? Because right now, the economics of the sport are moving faster than the governance structure designed to oversee them. And that's the real story behind the story. I'm Mike Chaudron, and this is Agent Confidential.